Surf Splendor.
I'm gonna need a roadie at some point in my career to do all this stuff. I'm gonna forget to push record at some point. Be a total nightmare. I'll give you a proper introduction in post-production so we can just roll into casual conversation. Let's start off with the hole-in-one.
Oh, the hole-in-one, yes. Went out there with my buddy Darren Burhart out to Indio because he's doing a competition out at the wave pool, and he lives on the golf course. So Thursday we played, terrible, 105 degrees outside, so hot. Thursday did better, and then Friday I did better, and then Saturday went out there early again, and par 3, 185 yards. We were just about to go around the people in front of us and skip the hole, and they said too many people in front, so we stayed, waited for them to finish. We're just kind of kicking back, no one's behind us, and grabbed my 6-iron, and the greens are super hard, like concrete. Okay. And you can't putt on them, you can't hit on them, nothing. So I'm going into the wind. I'm going to tee it up a little bit, hit my 6-iron, open up the club face, and just launch it straight in the air. Hopefully it'll land short because it was front red flag. And I launched it, and I'm watching. I'm like, oh, perfect. It's short, perfect shot. And all of a sudden I watched it hit the green, and I'm like, no. And all of a sudden it took one bounce straight in the hole. And I went, what? Dude, what? He's like, what? I'm like, dude, I just got a hole-in-one. He's like, what? So it was just like, and I started videoing it. And then he hit his ball just to the left, and I was videoing him hitting the ball, and I walked up, and I'm like, there it is. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like 185 yards out.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah, I was pretty stoked, and all the boys back in Florida are all like, dude, seriously? And I'm like, yeah. So, I told a few people, and it's pretty cool. So,
congrats.
Oh, thanks.
Was that just this last weekend?
Yeah, just last Saturday.
Because
you know how you see them all the time, and like you watched the PGA. I think it was a few months ago. I think like one guy got 2 hole-in-ones on 2 par 3s, and another one on I think there was like 4 or 5 hole-in-ones in one tournament.
Unbelievable.
And I was like, I don't know if there was cars giving out,
right? Because
some of them have like, oh, if you get a hole-in-one, you get a car and the caddy gets a car.
Right.
I'm like, where's my car? Where's my car? So.
Why is it happening more frequently now? Is it just people are getting that much better at it?
Yeah, people are getting a lot better, but it's still like, you can play 1,000,000 rounds and never get one. There's guys on the PGA that don't even get hole-in-ones, and totally. Their whole lives. And I have a friend that I think had 3 of them.
Oh.
And his first 3 or 4 years of playing. I'm like, dude, I had one like, I think 20 or 25 years ago out here at Costa Mesa, Mesa Linda, number 6, it was 125 yards out. And I was stoked, and this one was like crazy. And the funny thing is just the week before or a couple days before, I was talking to my buddy, and we were talking about hole-in-ones because we were on that hole. And I go, yeah, I got one here like 20 years ago. And then next thing you know, a few days later, I get another one. So, but it was just like crazy.
Amazing.
Super hard course to play though, because there's houses everywhere.
Which course is it?
Like Indian Springs or something like that. It's
just
out in Indio.
One of those like retirement communities.
Yeah, it's actually not a really retirement community. They're adding more houses around the golf course. They're building the place. They're building out. It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's just really hot.
Right.
It's 110 degrees outside.
Yeah.
But nothing compared, I guess it was a few months ago. It was 120 to 125.
Even around here, it was kind of record-breaking heat for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. So, but I'm looking forward to going out there when it cools down a little bit and playing the course again. Because my buddy, Darren, he has a condo right there.
Yeah.
He goes out there and loves it. Sat in the pool for a couple hours. And it's crazy because the pool water is like 90.
I know.
And the air is like 110. In the house is like 70.
Yeah.
You walk out, it's like, whoa, you're just like getting blasted. When you try to jump in the pool, it's like freezing, even though it's 90.
Yeah.
Because you're so hot.
Well, my parents actually retired out there.
Uh-huh.
So in the last 8 years or so, I've spent quite a bit of time. And then they have another house in the mountains.
Oh, okay.
So during the heat, they go to the mountains, and during the winter, they're in the desert.
Yeah, yeah.
And it works out perfectly.
That's the way you got to do it.
Totally.
Yeah,
and it's only 2 hours away.
Yeah.
The mountains versus the desert.
It's a perfect drive.
And now that they've got the wave pool out there, there's more reason to go.
Well, there is that wave pool. We checked it out. There's supposed to be a comp coming up this tomorrow, Friday. And that's kind of why we went out there, because Darren's running it. And he does all the competitions up and down the coast and coordinates all the ones in back east. And he does the board riders. You know, he's
West
in charge
Coast
of all
board
that.
riders,
Yeah. And he's helped out, you know, the Hawaiians get it together. The guys back east put everything together. So he's got a lot of, you know, on his plate.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've been friends since we were teenagers. We grew up together, surfed together, traveled together. And he's just, you know, I would say one of my closest friends that we kind of don't talk that much because he's always so busy, and I live in Hawaii now. So, but, you know, it's funny. He's like, you know, his wife's like, hey, Rich, you want to come out and hang out with us? I'm like, you know, I haven't hung out with Darren in forever, you know, back in the PSAA days, you know, and I'm like, I think it'll be good for me just to be able to hang out with Darren and talk and see what he's up to, what I'm up to. And it was a good deal. We had a good time hanging out for 3 days. So
Nala's barking.
Nala, quiet, cool it. My dog.
Listener's introduction to Nala.
Yeah.
I like to hear that. I've not maintained a lot of friendships from my youth because I didn't see the value in it for whatever reason. I just move on, you know. But I went to a 25-year high school reunion recently, picked up right where I left off with some of those people. So there's just something that's special, I guess, is what it is, about people who knew you in a foundational time in your life.
Yeah.
And you can go years, but you can just pick up where you left off, I guess, you know.
Well, most of all my friends I grew up with since first grade, kindergarten, first grade, I'm friends with a lot of those guys still, and girls, if I have any girls that we knew each other. I have a buddy since first grade. He lives right down the street.
Really?
And his daughter and my daughter, older daughter, they went to school together since kindergarten. And I mean, Newport, Costa Mesa, Huntington, San Clemente, Oceanside. I'm who I am, and I've got friends. And my Hawaii friends that I started meeting back in the early 80s, we grew up together, and we're still brothers. We still hang out.
Yeah.
It's like a huge family.
Well, what's interesting about that is in Southern California, that's so rare because there's so many transient people, and it's obviously become so populated. People move out, people, you know, come. So in a small town, that would be normal, but it's uncommon here. So it's great to hear. Let's actually start all the way back at the beginning. How did your family end up in Newport?
Well, it's through hundreds of years. We've been here for hundreds of years. My family, Spanish side, were some of the original settlers from back in 200-300 years ago.
Wow. Through
Mexico. And so I am Mexican, Spanish Mexican. And I got Irish, German, and French also. So my Irish side settled, could be 150 years ago, came over here. My French side, I mean, helped develop parts of big, huge colleges like Harvard or something like that, some weird college. I don't know, one of the big ones.
On the East Coast?
Yeah, like somewhere. I don't even know what college is. I always forget. And my German side came over, I think, in the 1800s also, because my great-grandma, my great-grandpa were born 1900. And I think they were born here in the United States. And so my Collins side came over somehow in the 1800s earlier. I don't know how far back it goes. And the farthest back I go, he started developing Riverside. So I have this big cemetery out there that's Collins Cemetery. It's a huge cemetery. So, and that was back in the 1800s to early 1900s. So my idea and my thing about it is Newport Beach used to be a party city. Like all the richest people, blah, 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 you know, they got the boats and whatever. If you look at the movie Duke, you know, the Duke, you know, when he used to come over here, he used to surf and hang out. My grandma used to hang out with everybody. She was like the hottest Mexican-looking girl, Spanish, just drop dead gorgeous. So she was like always hanging out with everybody. And that's how she met my grandpa, not my great-grandpa, but my great-grandpa also got a phone call from Mr. Huntington. Said, hey, I like what you've done. Can you come and help me? So he went and was helping Mr. Huntington develop Huntington.
As a real estate developer?
Yes.
Wow.
As a developer. He also did Long Beach. So we've got this big giant hotel, one of the first big giant condo hotels, right on the cliff. I can't remember that name. Well, you're looking out this way.
Ocean Avenue or Ocean Boulevard?
Yeah, like right on the beach.
Yeah.
Like down on the cliff, and you look to the right and there's like the Queen Mary and all that stuff. So this is what I've been told, and looked into it a little bit, and there's way more information about it. But that's why I said if you go down to Balboa Island, and there's a Collins Island off that, because that should be my island, because I'd be the last one to inherit it because I'm the last Collins. And then it would be my kids and my sisters. So, but in the 1930s, when the Depression hit, he had all this property. He owned all Balboa Island, Collins Island, all that, and all whatever else he owned in Newport and Huntington and wherever else he owned, just pretty much lost it all because of some weird. There was no taxes. There was no property taxes, and we didn't have to pay taxes back then. But someone decided to come up with taxes, and 1930s hit, and nobody has any money.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how he lost it. So,
did he retain some?
No.
Nothing. So he went from huge landowner to
nothing.
The Depression wiped out everybody. Basically, yeah.
And the only people that succeeded in all of that was probably outside money.
Yeah.
That didn't own anything but had money.
Cash.
And went, hey, I'll give you $100 for a $10 million lot now. Here's a shotgun. How about that lot? Collins Island, how about if I give you $50,000 for it? It used to be one big giant mansion on it. And now there's, I think, like 6 big houses on it.
Is it still called Collins Island?
They renamed it, but everybody that has the history knows it's Collins Island.
Gotcha.
And sometimes I meet people and I go, yeah, Collins Island. Yeah, I know that. Blah, blah. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
So I just think it's pretty cool, being raised here. I'm the 4th generation, and my daughters are the 5th generation, and my sister's kids are the 5th generation. Collins, well, it's not Collins, but she's still a Collins. And, the history on that side, my grandpa Bill Collins, he fought in World War II. He was a helicopter pilot. Get emotional when I talk. He was in the Japan and the Korean War front line, and he used to film while he was flying the helicopter, and he has it filming his gunner shooting bullets and getting shot back at. And you can see the tracers going like this. And, you watch on TV World War II stuff, and it's like, wow, that's pretty gnarly. But when you see your grandpa, if he would have got shot down, I'm not here. Nothing exists. So, it's just crazy to me that there's a lot of families out there that got to witness and see stuff out of their great-grandparents, their grandparents, their moms and dads, it's been going on for thousands of years, and it's just crazy when you think about it. And my other grandpa was stationed in San Diego right before Pearl Harbor. And when Pearl Harbor was devastated, bombed by the Japanese, he was deployed. And I think I think it was about a week later. And on his way during Midway, when, you know, we won, we defeated the Japanese in the battle, they got word, and he was just about to Hawaii, and they said, it's over, we're done. And they turned around and came back.
Wow.
Because if it kept going on, he would have been stationed in Pearl Harbor. I'm trying to think if he was with my grandma at that time. I can't remember, but I think he was. And if he would have got shipped off on one of the ships, he could have got killed.
Who knows?
You know? And my grandpa, Panzer, Dick Panzer, called him Bobby. He was one of the first guys to, in LA area and Orange County, to establish himself as a body and fender guy that was one of the most incredible guys you've ever seen fix a car. Like nuts. And he did model airplanes too, which is pretty cool. He's got a couple trophies up there that I have. He tried to get me into it when I was like 7. I just didn't have the, you know, I just like the wind up ones and you throw. Mm-hmm. So I really miss my grandparents. And I think it's just pretty cool that if you ever sit down with older people, you can listen to them, you know, and like my great grandma, my great grandpa, and on my other side, my great grandma, my grandpa, the sons and the nanny and all them. I mean, they were born in the 1800s and 1900s, and they saw everything.
Oh, I know.
They saw everything. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, we've seen a lot. I mean, I'm 55. I mean, I've seen a lot. And what's been going on right now and today. But it just seems like it was different back then than it is now. I mean, I don't want to see anything different. We have more information. We have the truth. What's really going on. Back then they didn't really, it was just a newspaper, a couple days later or something like that. So,
where did you get all these stories? Were you inquiring from your grandparents about
that when they were still alive? And unfortunately, my mother's side, my grandma and grandpa, great grandma and grandpa's son, they died, I think, around the 80s. And they all lived 92, 93 years old. But I was too little to really, young, doing my own thing, blah, 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 running around, chicken my head out, you know, going crazy. And then as I got older, I started learning more about it.
Yeah.
And then my sister got more into it, and my aunt and uncles were telling us more about it. And my grandpa and my great-grandma died in 93. Yeah, both died back-to-back in 93, so that was pretty hard for me. You know, one died in October, and the other one died 2 days before Christmas. And that was just not good for me because it became really difficult for me to celebrate Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
After that. But when I got married, and had my first daughter, Mia, Christmas became a joy again. So we bought this house when Mia was 2. And then we had our second daughter here, Lila. And then our third daughter here, Anella. So it's always been a home.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know.
Well, the reason I asked about where you got those stories from, I never had an appreciation for family history when I was young. I mean,
I didn't either.
Nobody does, right?
Really,
yeah.
Yeah.
But my grandfather, my mom's dad, was born on Kauai. He was Portuguese, but parents were indentured servants, basically. So they had a baby in Kauai, and that's where my grandfather was born, into poverty.
Yeah.
And was raised totally different than I was. I was raised in Southern California with a bunch of privilege. So when I had an awareness of him as a young kid, he was gruff and he was mean. My grandma was sweet. She gave us all the candy, everything. And so I was just like, screw that guy, you know, and I just wanted to play. Yeah. And as I got older, and actually it's funny, you're talking about, it's not funny, but World War II, the movie Pearl Harbor came out, the Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
And he was almost traumatized by it because of the realism.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, they did show real stuff.
So he was too young to be in the military, but he was living in Oahu when they bombed. Ugh. So he was there as a young kid. And so that was a moment where after the movie, maybe the weeks following, we just started a dialogue.
Yeah.
And he's telling me all this stuff I never appreciated before. And maybe he wasn't ready to talk about before. I was old enough, he was old enough, and he starts divulging. And then in the subsequent years, we did trips back to Hawaii, and he'd point stuff out, you know, like, hey, me and my friends were hot rodding around this turn, and one car went off the road. My friends died. Like, and you realize the trauma that he experienced. And it made me much more sympathetic and changed, of course, the dynamic of our relationship. Yeah. He's since passed away, but at this age, it's like, man, I wish I would have just sat down and asked all that stuff.
Yeah.
I hear it secondhand through my mom and my mom's siblings and stuff like that, but it's such a rich history that I had no appreciation for. So,
well, that's what I wish I could have done, but, you know, being me, always just flying everywhere, surfing like crazy, trying to make a name for myself. I never really got into the depths of my history. And I think children to this day, they should, to see where they really come from. But I really highly disagree with the, you know, get your, what is that thing they tell you to go online and do your history thing, you know, whatever.
Oh, like 23andMe and the family history stuff?
That you...
Ancestry.com.
Yeah, that. I'm against that.
Why?
Well, I have my reasons. I don't want to get into it. But I just think if you want to do that, go right ahead. I'm the only one in my family that hasn't done it because I'm not going to. And the tree stops here. That's it. And like I said, everybody else has done it, but I won't do it. And they like, well, we need to do it because we need to find out if you were this and you were, because we're there, but we can't, you know. I'm like, no. And I have a really good reason why I don't do it, and I guarantee my reason's correct. Conspiracy theory.
I know. I'm so intrigued.
Yeah. So, but, well, a lot of people do. I mean, you watched that.
Oh,
the movie. Was it Hitch or with
the Will Smith movie?
Yeah.
Was it
Hitch?
Yeah, he did make a movie called Hitch. I don't know if it's
watch that movie.
Okay.
So it's interesting because the girl who's so hot, he's trying to pick up on her and like take her out and hang out with her, but he doesn't know that she's trying to pull a fast one on him.
I see what you're getting at. So your concern is contributing your system or contributing your DNA to the database.
Exactly.
Is nefarious. There's a nefarious intent.
Yes.
With whoever's running the database.
Yes.
Collecting information.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I don't think it's that conspiracy theory-ish. It's realistic.
I don't think it is, but a lot of people might. I don't really, it doesn't matter.
So
It's just my own
You
opinion.
do want to know the family tree and the legacy and all that kind of stuff, but you're not going to give it to Big Brother.
No, I know enough to where I like to go back to Ireland.
Okay.
And find my family that is still there. I mean, there's a lot of Collinses out there, but I just feel that knowing enough about my life and my past history with my family, that there's a lot of roots. Because my Spanish side, like I said, came, I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, and came through Mexico and owned a lot of land that we see every day.
Yeah.
That got taken away.
Yeah.
Okay. And did a lot more building missions up the coast of California. So it would be really interesting to really find out. And if we could get our land back, because we still own the deed, but government took it.
It's probably been transitioned hands a dozen times since then too.
Well, this land in Mexico hasn't.
Right.
It's Mexico land that you see every time you drive into Mexico. All of it.
Oh, okay.
So, me and my sister talk about that. Could you imagine?
Crazy.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, that'd be insane.
Nuts. So, you know, my family has always been hardcore, gut-wrenching, work with your hands. We don't do anything unless we're working with our hands. My whole family history, on both sides, we worked with our hands. My great-grandpa helped build the oil towers in Huntington back in the early 1900s, or whatever years those were. He also helped build Disneyland, you know, stuff like that, because they were the first ones here.
Yeah.
You know, and my other step-grandpa, Clay Smith, which is Clay Smith Racing, Woody Woodpecker with the cigar in his mouth, he used to work with Ford on developing camshafts. So you out there can call me whatever you want, but I feel in my heart that he was working at the same time as Ford versus Ferrari. He was in that movie. He was the one developing how to make the Ford go faster than the Ferrari and beat it.
Yeah. I
can guarantee you my step-grandpa, Clay Smith, was part of that crew, because that's what he did back then. Mm-hmm. And he got killed in the Indy 500 because he was a pit crew, checking, making sure everything's okay, got hit by a car.
Oh my God.
Car kind of came too close or spun out and hit him and killed him. So
wow,
my family is heavily in the background of racing. And my father used to build hot rods to drag race and do other things. And he used to race boats with, I don't know if he was my step-grandpa again. I don't remember if my grandma was dating him or they married. I can't remember. He used to race boats down in San Diego when he was like a teenager. And he got super heavily into it. And one race he was in, engine blew up. Because it was the open prong ones with the engine right behind you.
Yeah.
And engine blew up. Drive shaft came on, blew his leg off, chopped his leg off. And, you know, smoke out the back, whatever, he comes up. And this is what he told me. He's sitting there waving his hand, hey, I need help. And everybody's just standing there, no big deal. And he goes, grabs his leg and lifts it up and goes, look, my leg's hanging off. My dad's a crazy man.
So how did he get into board building? I mean, transition us from all that into surfing. Well,
when he lived in Long Beach, they lived inland Long Beach. So him and his friends and his brothers, they would jump in the river at Seal Beach.
Yeah.
And that area.
Yeah.
They would take the river down and go surf. And then mom would come pick them up. And then they go back.
That's all sewage, by the way.
Well,
or it's runoff.
runoff back in the day, but it probably wasn't as bad as it is now.
True.
I mean, if you think about it, that was 65 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, and he started building boards, working for some companies, or just building boards out of his garage, you know, like everybody else does back then. And he got really into it. And since, you know, he had a background of building engines and cars and aerodynamics and all that stuff from racing, just a big old thick piece of crap longboard they used to make in the 50s. That was the hot ticket back then, that by the late 60s and early 70s, everybody was just throwing them away, didn't care, or chopping them in half and making short boards out of them and maybe taking the fin off and adding something else to it, whatever. My dad started doing that. And a lot of other people started doing that too. And then he started working for surf shops. And I think like in the late 60s, but certain things happened and he took a year off. And I was born in 69. And that year he took off.
Took off meaning from shaping or
just
disappeared?
kind of went away for a year.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know, and I was born when he was gone.
Oh, okay.
So, but when he came back, he was set free. I guess I'll say he was set free. I'm free. He started Wave Tools. And, but he was still working for other companies and he didn't really have a place.
Do you know, so was he in Long Beach still at that time?
No, we were here in Newport, Costa Mesa.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you know what other brands he was working for?
I think he was working for South Shore.
Okay.
It was a big company, big factory back in the day. And a couple others just to pay for stuff, you know?
Just like sweeping and as a grunt? And
No.
Shaping?
Laminating. Hot coating, sanding, whatever he could do.
Okay.
Because he learned quick. He's a quick learner, and he's a big dude, you know? And I think when I was about 1.5, we moved to Pismo.
No
for about
way.
6 months. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Because I can't remember why we moved there, but maybe it was cheaper up there or something.
For sure it's cheaper.
Yeah. And then I think we only lasted 6 months, 8 months.
It's cold.
Yeah. And he came back down here. So then he just established himself more here in the 70s. And then in 1974, he got an opportunity down here to build a factory. And my grandpa also to build a body and fender shop in front. Dad's in the back, you know. And so it's pretty cool, you know, walking home from school when I was in kindergarten, walking in, everybody's pounding and pounding, you know, building these, whoa, what's going on? And then I would just have to hang out and wait till we lived at the river jetties. Jump in the car, we go home to the river jetties. So,
where exactly?
Right there at the river jetties.
Like the Santa Ana River mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the way down.
The first street. Okay. Like you have the river jetties. There's the street that you can park right next to the jetties, and the next street over, we lived right here on that.
Unbelievable,
on the house.
Dude.
We lived there for, I think, about a year. And that's when my dad was kind of, before he really started building a factory, he was building boards in the garage.
Okay.
And so the neighbors got kind of mad. And the landlord found, I go, nah, you can't be doing that. Because it was like, you know, a couple ding repairs maybe, and like do one board, no big deal. But then it started like more people wanting to get his boards, and he had a couple guys building boards. And so it was like, nah, dude, you can't be doing that.
Were you the actual house on the sand?
No, we were
right back.
It went, here's the street, there's the alley.
Yep.
And we were the second house over.
Okay.
So we were third house off the sand.
And one house back from Seashore, whatever street that is, right there.
Yeah, one house back from Seashore. So Seashore's here.
Yeah, got it.
The alley's right there, and we were right there.
So
in between.
I mean, obviously that area's changed.
And it was all just sand and weeds and just
ice.
And it was a two-lane bridge before.
Oh, it was.
It wasn't a 4-lane bridge or a
6-lane
bridge. Now I don't even know. Maybe it's 6 lanes now or 2 lanes. I don't even know. Can't remember.
So well, the real estate's obviously gone through the roof and it's all ritzy now. But even when I was a kid, even 15 years ago, there was still kind of a party zone. It was like where you could rent a house, not cheap, but you could get a couple buddies together, rent a house, and it was like a lot of partying going on down there.
Oh, there's been, I mean, I was the Grom. I mean, I was in the middle of it all.
So tell me about that. Like, do you even remember being introduced to surfing, or was it always part of your life?
Surfing.
And then who were you growing up with? Who were the guys?
Yeah. So surfing's been a part of my life before I was born. I was raised in the glass shop since I was born. My mom didn't want to watch me. I got stuck in the lamb room or the shaping room, sit in the corner, don't move. And smelling all the fumes, bringing in all the dust, whatever. Since pretty much day one. You know, my dad wanted to go surfing, and if he had to watch me, he couldn't go surfing. But back in the day, you know, I have to tell the story. My sister used to come home pooping out sand. And my mom couldn't figure it out. Found out my dad used to dig a hole and stick her in the hole and bury her. Arms and head out.
No way.
Yeah. So he could go surfing. That's the story. I don't know if it's true, but that's the story.
What if the tide comes up?
No, he's smart enough to know about the tide. I mean, she's, you know, and I'm sure he kept an eye on her, but I just, you know, that's the story. So I don't know if it's true, but imagine that.
It's a good story.
You walk up and there's some 2-year-old sitting in the sand going like this. But back then, there was nobody on the beach. There might have been 2 or 3 guys in the water. And if there was 3 guys out there, they all knew each other. Now you go out there, there's 100 guys out there, I don't know a damn person.
You're right.
You know? So I grew up in a middle-class family. I wouldn't go there. No, we basically grew up poor, you know, struggling parents, 2 kids, starting off their lives, building a company with nothing at all. And, you know, my parents did really, really well. And as I was growing up wanting to surf, my dad had the opportunity to not just build that factory, but get a store right on the beach at Blackie's, Newport Pier, right there on the beach. Two stores over in a little nook at the end of the, right at the end of the parking lot on the north end of it. Mm-hmm. We call it the Blackie's 500 because it it's just looks like the, you know, and that was, I think, in 76. So by that time, I was like 6 or 7, 75, 76. It's about 6 or 7, probably about 7. And he opened up the store. And, you know, I started meeting all these new kids and stuff. It was cool. And wanted to learn how to surf. I surfed a couple times prior, like when I lived at River Jetties. Because we don't live at River Jetty. We moved up to Costa Mesa by the shop. And because rent was more expensive down there for maybe $150 more a month versus living up in a brand new apartment complex. Instead of paying $550, it was $400. But you got to remember, $150 back in 1976, that was like $15,000.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference. Because when I lived at the River Jetties, I get a dime and walk away with a bag of candy. Snickers candy bar, M&Ms, gumdrops, whatever it was, you know. And now a Snickers candy bar is $2.50 or $3. It's crazy. I don't even buy candy because it's too expensive. So once we got that store down there, I wanted to surf, but my dad wouldn't pay attention to me. He just went off with his friends and did his thing, did his thing, and my mom watched the store. And so, you know, one day me and my sister, we used to go out the pier all the time and go fishing. Never caught a fish. Everybody else we couldn't catch a fish. Mom, give us $1. She'd give us $1, go buy a bunch of bait, bring our fishing poles in all day, watching everybody catch fish. But we had a great time. We roamed. We owned the beach, me and my sister. We roamed everywhere. There's no kids. It was just us. Go play on the jetties, go play on the pier, go to all the surf shops or all the stores, you know. And, you know, we had Hannafin there. We had Russell there. We had Newport Surf and Sport. And then Surfside Sports opened up. And it was just the Mecca, or whatever you want to say. It was this crazy surfing community. Boom, there it is. And I was the youngest, and so was my sister. And then we had our friends that were older than us, that were 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years older. And then there was my dad and my mom. And it was just this crazy crew. You know, all these new designs, single fins to twin fins, to all of a sudden great Simon Anderson tri-fins. What? You know, I mean, I was just like, wow. And Newport Beach was the center of the surfing capital of the world. Every single best pro in the world came to Newport Beach and hung out with who? Me. I was about 8, 9, 10 years old. All the best guys would come surf, hang out. And then by the time I was 11, 12, 13, the next generation guys came, which were like the MRs, the Sean Thompson, Shane Horan, Rabbit, Dane, 𝐂𝐤𝐿𝐴, Larry Bertelman, Buttons, Michael Ho, Sean, and then Gary Elkerton, Kong, you know, and then I got guys, all my uncles from the day come from South Africa, other new guys I had met from Australia, new guys from Hawaii. I mean, I could go on and on and on. But the main guy that used to hang out and stay was Shane Horan. He was like, oh my God, it's Shane. He's here. And even though I knew him, because I got to go surfing with them, because the boys, they were just like, they were tight. All the boys were tight. And then you had our local crew, Jeff Parker, Danny Kwok, Preston Murray, Steve Richardson, and the other local boys, you know, Craig Brazda, Batch. He's no longer with us. And it was like the hottest 100 yards from 52nd to 54th Street. You had the Point, 18th Street. You had the Wedge. You had Blackies that had this wave in the wintertime that was epic. You had 28th Street, 36th Street, 42nd Street, 40. Every jetty had its own crew. But there was like so many of us. And Mike Moyer is no longer with us either. He's like a big brother, like an uncle to me. You know, we did everything together. He just tore up the magazines in photos. Newport legend, you know, just, I mean, I got a picture of the old pier with, they used to have steps and you could go down below where there used to be a train that used to go back out there in the early 1900s to dock and bring Newport food, because there's no way to get food or materials in, you know. And the history of everything about Newport and Huntington and Seal Beach, that whole area. But I mean, being able to grow up watching the world come to 54th Street and surf, and knowing about the stubbies coming in, and all of a sudden the OP Pro comes around. OP was boom. Yeah. Like, whoa, OP. You got to have OPs, man. I was decked out. Shorts, T-shirt, or, you know, button shirt. I was I had my OP, go to school. Look at me. You know, just like OP, and all of a sudden Quicksilver comes out. You know, it's like, oh, that's the new thing. Quicksilver. But OP, man, I don't know. Quicksilver became the new Newport Beach.
Yeah.
Pair of trunks. So only one place had it. Newport Surf and Sport. The only person. That was the connection back then. If you had something, this is the only person in the area that can sell it. Nobody else. That's it. If you had this board, only this surf shop, not another surf shop. Now everybody has it. And everybody has their own stores now.
Yeah.
Back then, man, it was like, I never got a pair. My dad had a pair. My dad helped, you know, had like the first checkered pair of Quicksilvers. You know, all the boys, Danny, Preston Parker, all those guys, they all rode Quicksilver back in the day because they're in the magazines. My dad brought Quicksilver to Kauai with the 𝐂𝐨𝐿𝐼𝐼𝐼𝐼s and all the boys, you know, and my dad made boards for all the guys over there in the late 70s, early 80s. And I'm just sitting there just going, woo, my head's spinning. Like, look at all these big guys, man. These are my uncles, you know. I had protection everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, not only just the protection, I had to grow up under that crazy, out of control attitude, the badass. No one messes with these guys because they are the baddest of the baddest. You know, the heaviest locals everywhere I went. And I had to live up to their expectations. I think I kind of went a little too far.
Do you?
A little bit.
Okay, interesting.
You know?
I wasn't sure if you were... yeah, I mean, that persona of you being aggressive and controversial, I didn't know if you had... if you still maintain that persona, or if you do feel different about it at this point.
It was an interesting time in life that people like me and Sonny Garcia, I think we were the two on the tour that took it to the next level, just because of the way we were raised. I mean, we had tough guys everywhere. I mean, Newport crew back in the day, they were like gnarly, and they'd go around and people mess with them, they just beat them up. And then there was the Hawaii crew that would just, you can't surf here, you don't get out, you get beat up. But I was born and raised into it. I was born and raised in everything. And all the heaviest guys around the world came to my town. So I grew up with everybody. So when you're surfing or windsurfing and your dad's out there rearranging people, and you go to Hawaii and your uncles are rearranging people, and you grow up under that, and it's getting to be your turn to start running the crowd, and you have to live that. Whether you win a fight or you lose the fight, it didn't matter to me. Because my dad used to tell me, there's always a bigger, badder dog on the corner waiting for you. So you better be willing to get your ass kicked. If you're going to choose somebody off, be willing to get your ass kicked.
Did he actually have those conversations, or was that okay? That
is not something I'm making up. He literally would threaten me. If you don't beat that guy up, I will beat you up and put you in the hospital. You have to put that guy in the hospital. And this was when I was 11. Because I trained to fight when I was a kid.
Was there order to it? As a kid, when you saw him enforcing, was it he's just holding the boundary, and if somebody crosses the boundary, he'll put them in place? Or did it seem unreasonable to you?
No, it was never unreasonable.
Okay.
It was always he did his thing. He couldn't hear, and he knew he was the worst guy in the water, and everybody knew it. But if they didn't know it, and my dad dropped in on you or something like that, the guy, and he was saying something, my dad didn't hear him, and then the guy come out and go after my dad, not a good choice. I mean, I've watched it. I've seen it happen, and I've had to stop it. And it was scary. And so growing up, learning to where if I were to get in an altercation like that, it was more like I'm putting my hands behind my back and just say, dude, hit me as hard as you freaking can. Because if you don't knock my ass out, you better hope you don't piss me off. Because I did not want to fight, ever, because of watching what I used to witness. Because I knew my temper and my anger, when I go, I can't stop. And that's not just because of my dad, it's also because of my mother, okay? And I really, really could understand that. And learning how to fight when I was a little kid, or already being in plenty of fights before I learned how to fight, getting picked on or punching guys as hard as I could to get them off me, I knew what I was capable of. And I still do. And I tell people to this day, I go, look, you know, I got a reputation from a long time ago. And I will walk away from any confrontation now. I'm over it. Like I said, I'm 55 years old. Yeah, I probably could still fight. Yeah, let's fight. Yeah, whatever. You know, the fact is I don't need to. I don't need to fight. I don't need to fight for what I believe in. I don't need to fight for anything. The only thing I fight for now is believing in God and Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior and the Holy Spirit. That's it. Every day I do whatever I can to have enough wisdom and knowledge and discernment, reading the Bible, to know which direction to walk and where to stay away from. I don't surf anymore because when I paddle out, I just feel the anxieties and I don't want to be there. If I have any confrontation out in the water to this day, or I can feel it before it happens, I'll just paddle in. I won't even like, oh, is it going to happen? No, I already know. I've already tested that out 15 years ago, and I'm in a confrontation, just like that.
Yeah.
I see a friend getting in a hassle, I just sit there and look and watch and pray to God, please do not lay a finger on my friend. Please do not lay a finger on my friend. Because that's when I don't stop.
I want to get more into the not surfing anymore part. I'll save that for a little bit because I want to address something else first. That aggression, obviously that's what you were known for on tour back in the day. And you said Sonny and I progressed things because of that.
Yeah.
I think that's also true. But do you, in hindsight, feel like it also hindered you from maybe achieving your full potential?
Well, it's funny because I had a feeling about that question, and this was going to bring up no matter what, is I have an old principal that used to spank me when I do something that wasn't really that bad, but it was bad enough.
Okay.
You know, and we've been in touch ever since. Okay.
Interesting.
He's and my sister and other kids that I grew up since we went to that school. And, you know, counseled, you know, family counseling, marriage counseling, whatever, years ago. And recently too. So, you know, between everything that's going on in my life right now to this day is pretty gnarly. I know some of my friends told them I was going to do this, and they just go, oh, are you going to speak your mind? And I'm like, I'll try not to. Because when I look back, I sit there and I go, God, what was I thinking? Why? But you know what he told me? Sorry, everybody, but I'm going to say it. He said, Rich, if you weren't raised the way you were raised, you'd probably become a pussy. And basically, I laughed at that. I thought that was funny. I sent to my sister and a couple of my friends, you know, that I used to go to school with, and they were just hysterically laughing. Because we all know this guy. And he's like straight up, gloves off, honest as can be, never kiss my ass, nobody's ass. He's straight up. And I listen to him. I listen to other people that have known me for a long time. I don't care. You know, I will take every bit of advice that you give me. As long as you know me, you can give me advice. But if you don't, I don't want to hear from you at all. Because I can't go talk to somebody. I can't go to some psychiatrist and tell him about my story. I actually tried that. Got on the phone, called this church thing, you know, Colorado, started talking. I thought I started counseling that guy. I'm like, I can't talk to anybody. Unless you know me and my background, where I came from, you can't give me advice. I would love to take advice, but it's very difficult. And that's from my past. But with my present, I can talk to people about how I'm feeling right now and what the situation is and help them say, hey, Rich, just you got to learn to let go and go on and move on, which I understand that. You know, me and my wife, years ago, we watched a movie with Adam Sandler. Was it Adam Sandler? No, I can't remember who it was. Anyway, it was some weird thing to where they're like going, you just got to, and USA.
I remember that.
What was that movie?
I don't know who it was.
It was, so for years after, we just, breathe in. Okay, Caroline, Richie, breathe in. USA. So I do that all the time. And it works. And I'm not like meditating, but I'm meditating towards God. I'm not meditating to any idol. When I think of God, let it go and give it over to God. Do not let this dictate your life,
right?
Like it used to.
Yeah.
Do not put your head through a car window. Do not put your hand through a car window. Do not put your head through a wall. Do not break your boards over your head anymore. Do not break doors over your head anymore. Do not crash your cars because you're pissed off. Okay? Do not put your whole body through a wall. Do not put your phone through a wall. Do not punch brick walls. Do not punch everything you see. Quit taking cans and crushing them on your head. Hey, it calms me down. I didn't know how to back in the day.
But with this insight, if you could go back, use that aggression, you know, precisely, let's say, but not suffer any of the consequence that you're talking about, do you think that you could have achieved more potential? Or
I think I could have, but I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. Life would be different and the whole surfing world would be different. Because every person in the surfing world or any world out there has taken whatever it is and done this, who created this. If this person went over here, everything would be different.
Yeah.
So I think about all the time, if I could go back and just get to myself and choke myself out and beat the crap out of myself and just tell them, shut up and listen, then things would be different. The life I have right now, I would never change.
So no regrets necessarily.
No regrets on getting married, having my children, not whatsoever. I love my wife. I love my children. But there's so much I would change through all that. Going back before all that, I would have changed so much. But like I said, if I did, I might not have accomplished anything. So I have to really learn from my history, from my past, and not forget it because it keeps me going forward. And then the last, I would say, 6 years to 4 years to now, I think God has me right where I'm supposed to be in my life. Learning how to be patient. Oh, this kid never had patience. Patience? What? No. Think before you act? Oh, hell no. Back in the day. There was no thinking. There was just acting. You stepped on my toe, I would go. I didn't care. Run you off the road, cut you off, and start punching your car. There was no thinking back then. And now, it's like, what was I thinking? The things I did to people I don't know, to the people I do know. You know? It's devastating to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it is bad. People don't understand. It hits hard.
Yeah. along those lines, I guess, when you look at, I keep bringing it back to your professional surfing career or how these things translated in that world. I think
nothing but anger to get me where I was.
But a consequence of that is people might not want to work with you either.
Yeah.
So when you look at your career and the level of surfing you were doing, there's a lot of guys who are kind of at that level of surfing who are still have the same sticker on their board today.
Yeah.
Still making a living as a legacy guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's where the question is about, I always think about that too. Like, we couldn't have achieved progression without this unbridled rawness.
Nothing.
So there's tremendous value in that.
Surfing's boring now. It's boring.
Who do you like now?
I don't like anybody.
Really?
I liked Andy Irons. And the only reason I started watching the tour again was because of Andy Irons. And I told him, you know, and I watched Kelly Slater because I grew up with Kelly Slater. We've known each other since we were young teenagers. And the only one I ever really want to watch now is John John. That's it.
Why?
I mean, no one's ever really impressed me now. I mean, you got all the Aussies that have been great surfers, you know. But now, they're all a bunch of robots.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a great wave. I surfed really good on. Well, you just lost to so-and-so. Oh, yes. He is a very good surfer. I think that he deserves to win. Hell no. Back in my day, F that guy. I want to kick his ass now. I want to bring him out of the water. Me, Sonny, Luke, Matt Hoy, Matt Branson, Scat, Gary Green, Gary Elkerton, even Nicky Woods, John Shamoka, 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐴, Liam, man, I could go on and on. The mid to late 80s, that was it. The late 70s, early 80s. I mentioned everybody's names. They're icons. They are surfing. This isn't surfing nowadays. Just a bunch of clones.
Yeah.
Do you see anybody walking around with different types of crazy looking clothes? Besides the Brazilian.
Ítalo?
He's the only guy right now that does crazy things.
And that level of energy was the modern version of what I was thinking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Like when you see him surfing in the finals day event at Lowers recently, he has that, like he can't even contain it.
No.
It's
great.
Out of control.
Thumbs up to him.
But
I personally don't know him. I don't care for his surfing, but I think he rips.
Why don't you like his surfing?
I just don't care.
Oh, you don't care?
No, I just don't care.
Not that you don't like it.
Yeah. It doesn't do me any good. It doesn't, it doesn't do anything for me. And everything everybody's doing nowadays is a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
There's nothing new. I mean, people post things all the time about this kid ripping or that guy ripping. I just pass it by.
Yeah.
It all looks the same to me.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm sorry, everybody, but that just is what it is. I mean, they're, like I said, Italo, even
Gabe.
Gabe, he's got a lot of power, but for me, he's too soft. Okay? He just, I mean, he's got to be the best surfer in the world. Don't get me wrong. But it's so good, it's choreographed.
Yeah.
It's that good, you know? So it gets to be boring because it's so damn good. And when you watch him, like, you got to be kidding me. Are you serious? Really? It's just like 99.9% perfect. And you're like going, can you at least fall or do something and fall? Because it's like, but you watch someone like John John or Kelly or Italo or Philippe, you know, it's like you watch, boom, what? You know,
more improvised.
Yeah, it's just an action. It's not a thought. And that's kind of what makes it more interesting. Like you'll see stuff with Andy Irons that you just look, whoa. Oh, I remember I used to do something like that, you know, and I would see him do some things that I used to do before him, and I'm like, I remember when I did that. I remember when I could do that, you know. I remember when I was trying to do air loops back in the early 80s when I used to windsurf. I used to try to do loops windsurfing, but I couldn't do it. And then I was trying to do loops 82, 83, but I couldn't do it. I was too little. I felt I was too little, you know. But I did a couple grab rail loops and landed them. I did a couple, and then when I almost broke almost ripped my thumb off, I ain't doing those. I'm a pro. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But now they just like, yeah. I get up in the air and I'm like, nope. Yeah. I throw my board. Well, my body's kind of jacked. But
let me ask you this: talking about your approach post-heat interview, F that guy, I could beat that guy. I've read quotes too from interviews where you were saying, if those guys winning world titles, if they could do it, I could do it. Like I'm every bit as good as them. Yeah. Right. Whose surfing did you actually admire at that time? When you were on tour with those guys, did you appreciate Tom Curran? You know?
Never. I always liked Tom Curran because he was a great surfer. I didn't like his style because that wasn't me. Mark Occhilupo was a little bit brash, but I didn't like his style. I didn't like him either. Not as a person, but I just, you know, that wasn't me. Okay? I looked more towards, I liked MR back in the day. I liked Shane Horan. I liked Gary Elkerton. And I fell in love with Carol. Like, unbelievable. I mean, when I was 11 years old, my first Katen, it was me, Rabbit, I think Hans Hiedelman, Michael Ho, Sean Thompson, and one other guy. Are you kidding me? I was so stunned that when I paddled out with those guys in the pier, I sat in the pier. Just staring. I remember my dad was like, get over there, you know, like one, huh? What? And I'm still in the pier. The heat starts, and I think it was Hans Hiedelman took off on the first wave. And it was like 4 to 6 feet. It was pumping Northside Huntington. Right, barreling in the bottom turns, comes up, off the bottom, comes in, blasts the lip, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I'm gonna heat. It was like, I mean, when I went on tour, every single one of those guys, I wanted to kick their ass. I wanted to beat the crap out of them, whether I was in the water or out of the water. I told them to their faces, I'm taking you out. Oh, you Seppo, you freaking American Seppo, you all think you're like, oh, I look down, I go, no, you don't understand. I'm different. I'm not that guy. And they all laughed at me. I had my double wing swallow tri-fins. They laughed at me. Oh, your boards look like MRs. What's wrong with that? Do you know how many times you win the title? 4 times. I'm here to win it. I'm not here to show up. I'm here to show up and blow up. I'm here to grip it and freaking rip it. I can't putt for dough. I wish I could, you know? My actions were loud. My dress code was loud. Got on Oakley and made their product and their company boom, you know, wearing the blade, shaving my head, you know, just me and myself in my own world. That's it, just me. Then me and Sonny became friends. We knew each other from like years prior. And then, man, we were just clashing. We always clashed. Brothers, but clashed, you know. But when I saw who was winning titles, I wanted to figure out to implement them in me. Whether it was MR, Sean Thompson, Rabbit, Dane, Larry, Michael Ho, Grab Rail. Oh my gosh, you remember that? I mean, that was a whole new era, you know, of, oh, we can grab a rail and pull in. That was great. You know, the year that Carol was on the title run, man, he was just doing these bottom turns and just doing this turn in the lip, just cranking it. And after Europe, I had him in the final at Hossegor, and it was about 6 to 8 feet, 10 feet, and he ended up beating me, which I didn't care because I wanted to figure out how he is winning. So after I was done, came home, and I had video, because I took videos of everything I have, and I had video of me videoing him. That turn right there, that's the turn I need to learn how to do. I can't do that turn. Every day I served 54 Street, anywhere I went, I'd find nobody out somewhere. I would just take off and do that turn. Take off, turn, take off, fall, 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 constantly falling. How can I do the turn? Fins were at 3, 2 3/4, knock the fin out, put a box in. Hey, Carol, what's your back fin out? Oh, it's about 1.5 or 2. Huh? Mike put my fin all the way back to 2 inches. Finally could do that turn. Bottom turn in the hook. Hard as you can. Press it as hard as you can. Not slide. No sliding the tail. No tail gay slides. Gay ass tail slides. Just carve it around like tight pockets, like waist to head high waves. Full rail turn all the way and then release and come out. One motion. I worked on that thing for days and weeks until I finally got it down. I took it on the tour. Did my big long section floaters, my speed floaters, my rock and roll floaters. Do a floater, come in a second, just as hard as I could. My little skinny twit legs. It wasn't easy, but I did it. So, but, you know.
Well, when I asked you who's surfing among your peers did you admire, you named a bunch of people who are older.
Yeah.
But you said F you to all the guys who are your actual peers.
Yeah.
So it sounds like...
Oh, we were all like that. We were all like that. Man, when I first met Luke Egan, he just went, walked away. You know? When I met Matt Hoy, yeah, we went out that night that I finally met him. Yeah, we had a good time that night. I passed out on his mom's couch. Woke up like, whoa, what happened? Okay. And I ended up meeting all my friends. And, you know, we all became friends. We're all part of a family. We didn't know each other. I didn't know who these guys were. I didn't know, you know, like I said, I could go and name all the guys that we all started the tour together. No one knew who I was. Some of them knew me because I was always in the magazines. And some came up and go, hey, you're Richie Collins, how you doing? Some just brushed me off. And then we all eventually became friends. And I was the guy that just kind of hung out and did my own thing. Yeah. I didn't go out and party with them and just did my own thing.
Surf Splendor.